This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. Listen in as the Two Business Guys Mastermind on the 2020 opportunities and the 2021 possibilities. Enjoy. So, hey, everybody, the Two Business Guys want to mastermind about 2021, and then we're going to be seriously masterminding about opportunities for 2000. No, I mean, we want to mastermind about 2020, and then we're going to be talking about some stuff for 2021, right? It was a year, wasn't it, John? I got some things to say about 2020. I think it's going to be different than what people might think I'd say.
Yes, it has been a year, but even though it's had many challenges, I think there are opportunities for us to reflect and learn and things to be appreciative of. I actually thought about this on New Year's Eve and actually wrote a little something in regards to this. Yes, it challenged us in many ways, challenged the norm of our lives in interacting as we are social creatures. But it also helped us reprioritize a little bit. It
Forced
helped
us to.
Yeah, it forced us to. It forced us not to just do that, but also pay attention to and recognize what do we value in this life. I mean, human life's a big one. I mean, the frailty of human life. When you lose over a million people worldwide to this pandemic, over 340,000 in the United States alone, in less than a year, that it helps you think about how limited of a resource time is, and it's not something that we could get back. We can't rewind it. I'm thankful for the opportunity of being able to spend more time, deliberate time with my family. I think that was so. I wrote in my writing on New Year's Eve. We spent many of evenings before it became cold in Michigan in the driveway at night. Playing pig or horse, and how fun that was. The other night we played Uno. But
these
just
are actual games. Sitting at the
yes,
table with cards.
yeah. The other night was, well, pig was shooting hoops.
Sure, yeah.
But just helping us realize that time is a commodity that is limited for all of us.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And as I rounded out 2020, I didn't make, for the first time in a long time, I didn't make resolutions. And the reason I didn't make a resolution is because I saw how the systems and processes that I had in place were solid. Right. So I didn't have to go, and I've gone away from making goals, and I just ask, of myself, is what you're doing right now a generating opportunity? Is it a revenue generating opportunity, for your business? Is it something that is working toward that thing that you say you want, whether it's a target, whether it's a goal, or whatever it is? I had financial goals, and now I say, okay, the financial goals, if you make a goal, and this is something that, Scott Adams talks about, he says, goals, if you're making goals, that can be kind of bad for you, because if you don't hit it, depression can come because I didn't hit this goal. But if you have a process in place, then you have no choice but to hit the goal, right? So you are saying, okay, I'm a writer, let's say, right? And I am a writer. Did I write today? Did I write based on my theme? Did I write based on the book that I'm writing, chapters that I'm writing, et cetera, et cetera? And if you say, well, yes, I did. I got up in the morning and I put down 1,000 words, right? Now you can look back and say, well, if I did that for 30 days, that's 30,000 words. That's a small book, right? I think about 40,000 words get you a 200-page book. So that becomes the process. But if you had to go, well, I'd like to write a book, then you say, well, great, I feel good. I made this goal. The dopamine rush to your head says, yep, you did. And then you don't do anything. I actually had a client that I was talking to yesterday, or day before. Oh, yeah, actually, it was yesterday. And she says, about her goals. I says, goals are for gumps, right? Remember how he used to say gumps, guy couldn't play basketball, right? And I said, because if you don't hit the goal, then you go, man, I didn't hit the goal, But I asked if you did anything toward it, right? And what inspired me to do this is because I know this particular this lady I was talking to yesterday, and she had been looking for work, and she'd been looking for work for like a couple of years now, right? But I would always ask her when I was working with her, trying, getting her resume straight and giving her some tips on, how to look for work. I would ask her, how many applications did you put in today? Oh, maybe one, right? And I thought, that's not going to get it done. If your goal is to get a job and you have no process, in other words, you're not putting in 10 apps a day. If you're not spending all day as if you had a job, 8 hours, putting in, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to put the necessary volume in. You're not going to go on the necessary interviews to get better, to get rid of some of the quirks that you might have, right? Or to get those rejection letters that tell you, yeah, we decided to go with a different candidate, or to understand that you have to be skill-wise maybe better than someone that's younger than you, or whatever it is. Then you're not going to get it done. And what brings me to this kind of thinking was I was watching a guy online, I think it was LinkedIn. He highlighted something that a lady put on LinkedIn. She had put on that she had applied for 178 jobs, gotten 68 rejection letters to get one job. You think about the sheer volume. And then he repeated how many people would have quit at 25, 50, 75, right? Now, when you're looking at it from that perspective, and I do a coaching with people that are looking for jobs because of my experience in, helping people get work. And I had even a relative say, hey, I'm depressed now. I'm not feeling very, very well because, I've been getting all these rejection letters. And I says, well, how many applications you put in? Oh, I put in about 25, 26. I'm thinking that's not enough. If your process, however, is that I get up every day and I put in a 8-hour day of work looking for work. Now, it's not an emotional based thing. It's just what you do. You don't worry about the rest. The next day becomes the opportunity.
Yep.
And this is how I want to look at our 2021, right? I had put some notes, just a couple of notes down, not a lot. I said present business and then future business. As we look at our present business, the business model could be bust, but it's bust based on external things, not you. Right? You could have been doing a really good book of business, great restaurant, great such and such, right? And the style of how you were doing that business then could have been affected by outside and external forces. Unforeseen, but nonetheless here. We cannot take away from the fact that external or not, they're here and they're affecting your present business. And then the opportunity is, okay, if I'm flexible in my thinking, what would a future business look like? And think like that. Right now, I happen to be in the information, products business. I'm in the digital business. I'm online. So I was already positioned. And I did this like several years ago when it really wasn't that popular. To be online, to be trying to make your money 100% in a digital fashion, right? To be a digital entrepreneur wasn't super duper, it was like, yes, there's some heavyweights. There's a couple people out there. Now I say everybody's an entrepreneur now. We're all entrepreneurs now. So we now have to start thinking about what is the best way that we can go about that entrepreneurship. And then how can we incorporate it in what we are consistently doing in our business? The brick and mortars, commercial businesses, they're going to be suffering, right? We're seeing that right now. A lot of people are saying, I think I can do this thing at home. I like it at home. It's a little noisy, but I found a way to make it work. So now companies are going to be, after, we get some pandemic relief and after we get some vaccinations and all that, companies are going to be saying, hey, come on back. And people are going to go, I don't think so. Now, what is that going to do to all of this infrastructure that we've got, that we're housing people? The gig economy has exploded. So I say that, opportunity, you talked about that, John. So now I say, all right, I came up with this idea. I says, all right, and this is something that actually I came up with when I was working in the work development space. It was like, I would always tell people, hey man, we got to figure out how to get you a job so you can flip that gig. And that always seemed to turn people on when I said it that way, across hues and black, white, didn't matter who. They were like, oh, that's interesting. Let's flip that gig. And now truly, and I was going to write something on it years ago. We're talking about 3-4 years ago. And I thought it just didn't come about. But now when I say flip that gig, people are saying, yeah, because I've been a gig worker. I'm an entrepreneur now. I'm out there doing stuff in a different capacity than I did before. I'm a freelancer. I said, well, let me show you several ways to flip that gig. It seems to resonate now. So present business to me suggests that we may be putting down roots for our future business, right? And they weren't ready to harvest then, but now they seem to be ready to harvest. And I've been wanting to take advantage of that, and nothing is stopping us from doing that. We started a podcast during this time. We've written a book. I've got multiple other digital products out there and stuff like that. That's what this situation brought, is a new level of thinking. And this is what, if how we're masterminding on things, is how can we look at this 2020 in review and then now suggest a couple of things to you that you need to be thinking about, not just from a defensive standpoint, but from an offensive standpoint.
Absolutely.
So with that said, John, we can really kick off, our session today, because I just think, man, that so many people out there are thirsty, and I don't mean that in a bad way. They're thirsty for the possibilities that they see, but they may not have some of the structure in place to take advantage of it.
I think what you said is super powerful, and we've touched on this in a number of our podcasts in regards to processes, making sure that you're setting up processes. Think of it this way: if you're training to be an Olympic athlete, there is a process that you go through every day. It doesn't matter how you're feeling, if you're up, if you're down. You do everything. You step by step by step by step by step. And it's by doing that repetition over and over and over again that's what gets you towards success. All of us wish that we could go down and do one set of crunches and have a six-pack. You know what I mean?
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
But that's it. But everything is a process in our lives.
Yeah.
If you want to become better at anything, if you want to be more learned, then you're going to read more. You're going to listen to more podcasts. You're going to structure your activity. It's not good enough to say, I want this, without setting a system to support that around it.
Right.
And I think that's what we miss far too often when we're striving for goals. We're like, hey, you know what? I want to quit smoking, or I want to lose 20 pounds, but how do you do that?
Yeah. What's your process?
What's your process? Nobody set something around that to say, this is what I'm going to do well, if I'm craving that cigarette, what are some things that I could do to replace that?
Mm.
Um, how do I get on a track where I'm eating healthy and I'm keeping myself accountable? Do I have others in my life that are trying? And it's the same thing in business. This is anything that you want to become the best you at. Just like you said, hey, if I'm planning on writing a book, I'm writing 1,000 words or uh, a day. I'm preparing myself. It might not. It's not all going to be Nobel Prize worthy stuff
Mm.
that flows on those papers, but that's okay. It's a process. You're doing it every day,
You have no
and
choice but to get the goal. You're
you
absolutely
have no
right.
choice. Yeah, and I think we need to look at business the same way. Sales is one of those big ones that we've talked about in business, that is this same type of animal where, hey, you know what, I can't make 2 or 3 calls and meet the sales goal or quota or whatever it is that I have. It's going to take 100 calls to
Hmm.
get 2 people to sit in front of you, or whatever it is.
Yep.
But it takes a process, it takes dedication, and the sooner that you write these things down, Randy, you talk about, hey, my best days are the days that I started reading.
Yep. I start
I
off with
don't, I
reading.
don't, yep,
Yep. That's it.
and I don't watch television during the day either. Just like you, and I started a new book yesterday, The Garden by John Gordon, and it's like those things speak into us. They speak into who we want to become, you know, and you got to watch it. And Randy, I'm imagining you're just like I am, as, hey, I'm not going to watch television during the day, or I'm not going to read romance novels, because those aren't preparing me or enriching me in any way for the
Hmm.
for the future.
Hmm.
They uh,
That future business,
that
present
future
business, future
business.
business, right? Yeah.
So it's everything that you do. It's not just certain things, but you have to take your whole life and you have to pretty much assemble it around, hey, what are the goals? And in our house, you've seen this year that my girls have had their business. I have a daughter who, who's 10, who does dog treats. She makes and bakes her own dog treats. I have a daughter who makes coasters. That's 9, and both of them have published books in this past year. And it's something that, you know, I I want to set that process for the next generation, because it's not something that you just naturally come into and decide one day,
Hmm.
but you have to form your life around it. What are these principles? It's just, you see these individuals who are very healthy. They're eating vegan, and they don't um, they don't consume any types of uh, products that are unnatural.
Hmm.
And it takes that discipline, and it takes a process. They have to plan, because they might not be in a situation where that might be easy to come about.
Yeah.
If I'm on a road trip and I'm stopping at the gas station to get some, am I going to be able to? So I may have to prepare ahead of time. And it's the same thing that we have to do with our lives, professionally, personally. Um, and that's why it's not good enough just to have goals, but you have to have the structure around those goals,
Yep.
and the contingency. Well, how am I going to meet those goals? What if I'm put in this type of situation? How am I preparing ahead of time?
That's an interesting way to look at it. And as we think about the businesses out there, if your business, we got to look at our businesses as just the platform that then allows us to do other stuff, right? So if your platform, I've been thinking a lot about um, the AAS, right? As a service. So whatever you put in that first letter, as a service, right? And I've been looking at the business model of software as a service, platform as a service, and reverse engineering that and saying, how can I position myself so that anything I do is a as a service kind of business, right? Which is something that benefits your clients. So if you say your restaurant, that literally is just the building, right? But you're in service to other things. You're in service to your employees. You're in service to your chefs. You're in service to your service, all that, right? But the platform itself is just a means by which people come to what you do. Now, if we think about it like that, we say to ourselves, well, I'm still a restaurateur. I just don't have a building.
Mm-hmm.
And now, what do I do when I don't have a building? How do I restaurant, right? And I use it in a verb sense. So that becomes the question of what did you do to engender the trust of the people that came to your restaurant? What did you do to connect with them on a consistent basis? How are you now engaging with them? Because you could still be selling, I don't care, it could be Omaha steaks. You could be selling dinner plans. And I had worked with a chef once, and I think he couldn't see the vision. But I says, you now could be in people's homes, whether it's via Zoom or not. They pay you to help them cook like you.
Mm.
Think about that. So now from this, a business line could still occur because you have a relationship with them. They could come in, you could do your Zoom, and you're going to show them how to saute. You're going to tell them what ingredients to buy. All of that stuff. You may say, hey, I'll do the shopping for you and bring it to you. Here's the service. Here's what it'll cost you. Kind of a thing, right? And now people are saying, oh, I love this, but I don't know what to cook. I don't know how to cook it. So what you do then is you have your Zoom meetings or your Zoom cooking opportunities, and you now stay at top of mind with them. Your restaurant could go bye-bye, and you could start a whole nother situation because you've engaged with them, right? You have now tweaked and turned and used the technology to still do that thing that you do, right? And that's if you're looking at it from as a service perspective, right? Chefing as a service, right? And then now you have a chance again. You go out there and you say, well, what else can I do? Well, you're creating and helping people create. You could be creating content from that, right? Chef your name in the homes of their name. And what we're going to be doing today is this. And then they show a couple of things on their cameras, right on their phones, right? Hey, today, chef your name is showing us how to cook this, right? As opposed to saying, well, if I give away all of my goods, then what good am I? And you got to look at it from a different standpoint, right? If you give away what you know to do, they have a different appreciation for what you do, right? Because they may say, well, I'm not sure if it tastes like what you have, chef your name, right? But we did the best we could, and it was fun. And they were already going to be doing it because they're already at home. And now they just have an unusual experience with you because you are the business, not the restaurant that you chefed at, not the restaurant that you ran, not the restaurant you served at. So you can go really down the line and says, okay, if I am in this position, I am a server. Some people say, well, what about the service? Well, what couldn't the servers do? The servers could be, creating content as well. How do you engage? How do you approach? How have you noticed your tips go up when you do X, Y, and Z? Talk about that, teach that, show that, right? And then that becomes your little cottage industry. And you literally get on there and say, hey, I'm consistently doing this thing that I did that earned me money. Would anybody be interested in that? Right? As a Patreon. Listen, I'm going out there and every single day I'm writing something down that I noticed, right? How to take a customer from angry, how to notice when someone's maybe in trouble mentally, all these things become what you did as a result of what you did, right? Your job. So you got the present business, right? And I want to say using present as if to say past business, right? This is what we did, right? Or this is what we're doing. But now we start thinking about what is the future of business going to be looking like. And then we have these opportunities, we say, to create content, to present something out there into society that you believe from your corner of experience, right? Or your community of experience, that you now are saying this might help. Take these principles and take what you need. Like the preachers, take what you need, right? This is what I'm talking about. These are the ways I believe if we can change the way we think about the thing that we did, now we're not looking at it necessarily as a loss. And we're looking at it as, well, that experiment is over, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about that experiment thinking, always in beta. I think Google still says they're in beta, right? Because they're always trying something new. And that becomes what is the opportunity. You think about Google as a business. I just read recently that they came out with they have a supercomputer that they figured, and I'm not going to mess this up. So guys, computer people out there, don't mess with me. That they have a supercomputer that can figure out past, I think it's past quantum computing, right? It does something in such a way or so fast. They said that it's comparable to minutes to what used to take years. But now think about how they were able to develop this. They developed a business that kicked off a couple of money, but I'm gonna say that may not even be their main business in the future, because now they have been able to use their algorithm to get it better, to now figure out how to do this thing with this quantum plus computer, that now they are being able to go into a whole new line of business that may totally outstrip the search business that made them billions, right? Because this quantum plus computer now can do something in such a different way. And that's going to be all kinds of new business. You see what I mean? So they didn't just look at it and says, well, this is what I do. They're saying, well, this is what I do, but it's preparing me for this. It's laying the groundwork that we talked about earlier. I think if we're developing that way, that's how we're going to succeed going forward. Is that, no, this is just a platform I'm doing, but I am as a service. And now you get all these different inputs, and all you have to do, I think, is attach what you are to some other vehicle, and you can still get to where you're trying to get to. That's how I think we got to look at 2021. And I mean, look at it consistently, right? You spoke about that, John. Process, but here becomes where I notice people fall off. It's in the consistency, right? And I look at my own self, right? And I tell you guys, this is the pot calling the kettles black, right? Because in anything that we consistently got done, we've been doing these podcasts every Saturday. I think we missed one Saturday consistently, and now we have a lot of them. And then you say to yourself, well, that's fine. You have your podcast now, but look, we not only have our podcast, but we've got words from that podcast. So we were able to put a book out from the first podcast. We could probably look at all the other podcasts and put material out, massive material, pull things out of that. We now have the opportunity, because we consistently did something. We built up a bank of material that if we repurpose, we can do all kinds of stuff, help people in all kinds of areas. That becomes the opportunity. We've got visual stuff. We've got audio stuff. We can chop it up we can flip that gig, as I said earlier, right? That becomes what happens when you stay consistent with whatever you decide you're going to start. That's the key. Get 20, 30, 40 opportunities in front of the camera if you're doing something for YouTube. Get 30, 40, 50 applications out there if you're looking for work. Make 50, 60, 70, 80 phone calls, right? Some people are on LinkedIn crushing it, getting all kinds of business, all because guess what? They've decided that, that's the new cold call opportunity. I get people calling me all the time. right? And every now and then, like I had to tell a guy last night, hey, and this is what I said to him. I says, I appreciate your company or your whatever he's doing, this business model. I can appreciate it. I said, but I never did like this, and this about it. Right. And I'm not gonna say what it is because I may actually be working with some people in that field. Be careful there. But my point is that I've seen this business model. Right? And I can appreciate it. But how his approach was, hey, are you ready to make more money in 2021? What is that, man? That's no relationship building start. you know,
Mm-hmm.
you ask a different question. Hey, what have you found to be the best ways you've made money so get me talking. Well, I did this and this. Well, that's what we do here might be able to help cover that. He probably would have had a better chance if he hadn't approached him wrong. And then here's another thing that I remember about this same guy. I had not heard from him in 8 months. He sent a little blurb out on LinkedIn. This is where consistency comes in. He sent a little thing out. Hey, Randy, such and such, such and such. Let's connect. Okay. Didn't hear from him for like a month. Then, hey, oh yeah, hey, Randy. No consistency. He built no relationship with me. So as we talk to you guys out there, think about it. Don't just drop in, parachute into somebody's life and say a couple of things. Get in there and start talking to them consistently, absolutely every single day. Figure that out, how you can do something once and send out a message to them all the time. That's building a relationship. And you never know what will happen from it. We could have did a partnership. John, I tell you, 2020 was a year of partnerships for me. And I did it as a means to come out of how I used to think. And that was as a lone ranger. Or if you're a woman out there, lone rangette, whatever you want to say, right? You do stuff all by yourself, all alone, dealing with all the stuff by yourself. That's not the way to be. I believe current connection is the new cash cow. I believe that if you're not connecting enough, then your business will suffer. You need somebody else to come in and talk with you, just like what we do here every Saturday.
And you think about this, we've experienced this throughout our lives. We may not realize it to that extent, but we grew up with Julia Childs and Jacques Pepin on PBS making meals.
Who is this now?
Yeah, the cooking shows.
Those people. I'm too young for that.
But we remember, or
Gordon Ramsay's of the world,
Gordon Ramsay, Guy Fieri, or whoever. But they're chefs, right?
Right.
They are chefs, but we see them differently because they're not just chefs, but they're also teaching us. They're bringing us into the world. Think about This Old House, where these guys over on the east side of the East Coast.
I remember that show.
And they go into these houses and
it Bob Vila? Is This Old House or
yeah.
Bob Vila? Yeah, I kind of remember that. Did he start it and then another person took over to call it something else, or was it just Bob Vila in This Old House?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
That might be two separate people.
I know PBS still does it.
I love Bob Vila, man.
But think about Chip and Joanna. Chip is a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
So, but at the same time, they're bringing us into their world. So they're creating that relationship. Think about it. If you are Chip, I guarantee you his phone is ringing off the hook. Everybody wants probably him to come and remodel their home. Him and Joanna to come and remodel their home.
Heck yeah.
It's the same thing with any of those individuals. They're in high demand because they're in front of us. They weren't just using their skills for one purpose, but what they were doing is they were looking much longer down the road and saying, hey, have we looked at this? And we thought that Bob Ross is another one. Think about how many painters Bob Ross inspired.
Bob Ross was the guy with the fro.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
Happy little trees. And,
yeah. And he would paint all the time. I actually just recently picked up a book of his. I was in a hobby store, and I picked up a book of his, and I was amazed because I'm looking at the business model of Bob Ross. right? And I'm thinking the guy just got on TV and just consistently did a thing. And as a result, he, like you said, he taught up a whole bunch of folks. And I read about another guy who says he was going to paint a painting a day and sell those. And I just recently read about a lady who did the same thing. You know, she's, I think either she copied this guy's approach, and it wasn't super fancy stuff. She would make, you know, all kinds of, you know, fruit bowls. But I watched her video once on her website, and I thought, this is amazing. And she was drawing an apple. I'm thinking, well, you know, it's an apple, but just how it came together. So now she's showing you this, and then she's selling these things like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you did that, guys. Whatever your business is, you're going to get out and every single day show them how to write. You're going to get out and every single day do this. One of the most consistent writers I know is Stephen King, because, you know, he gets off and just does it. And what encouraged me, like I was up working on New Year's Eve, I was working on Christmas Day, I did something consistent. Now, this is a learned trait. You know, it's not what I would typically do, right? When I work 9 to 5, you know, I couldn't wait. I knew every calendar day because I knew I was going to be off, you know. But now that we're all entrepreneurs, as I like to say, we're all entrepreneurs now. We're thinking about things differently. And imagine now if you consistently do something like that, your body of work, the body of work that you create, the body of work that you leave behind, the body of work that now could tantalize generations to come. And you think, just little old me? Absolutely. Just little old you, right? Because your DNA is unlike anybody else's. And your talent streams is like, you know, your experiences unlike anybody else's. If we can now mix that with the technology that we have, we never know who we could attract and who we could inspire, encourage, and motivate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is the big message of what to be thinking about for 2021. And some people say, well, it's in the skill build. And I'm going to say it's in the building of the skill called consistency,
Absolutely.
right? That
Absolutely.
skill, consistently doing a thing, you know, and staying with something till it's end. You know, you say, well, listen, I'm going to write on this book for 26 weeks. And every single day for 26 weeks, I'm going to put something out. Now, we know that that's thousands and thousands of words. If you do the math on that, 1,000 words a day, right, gets you X amount a week. And at the end of that time frame, you got probably 2 or 3 books. You know, not Stephen King novels, right? Not 800, you know, not 800-page tomes, you know, where he puts in 365, 1,000 words or something like that. But you got something. Now, with regard to Stephen King, he puts out a book, more than a book every year. James Patterson puts out, like, I don't know, it seems like 20, right? But he's got a system. He's got a style. He does his outlines. He sends it to his companion writer. They get in their writing room and they produce books. And as a result, he's making 90 million. And this is old numbers. He was making $90 million a year. In that way, of course, you got to pay out, his costs, but his consistency in that, and he's constantly coming up with stuff. Right? I see a new James Patterson book. Seems like every time I go to the bookstore or Walmart or wherever, it's like, God dog it, if I could just be like this guy, And he's not the only one. Joyce Carol Oates does the same thing. And I'm thinking, they constantly do a thing, consistently do a thing. And I think that's kind of the thing for 2021 in businesses. Even if your business has gone to bust, tell us about it. Teach us about it. Show us some things that, had it successful. Create content around that. Create a channel around that. You could get no views or you can get thousands of it. One video could hit and it starts now paying you because people are saying, I dig what that person just put out there. You could be doing it in relative obscurity, right? And nobody's watching any of that stuff until they are. And you've
So,
got now the experience. Go ahead.
Randy, for those individuals out there, they're like, heck, I'm a terrible writer, but I've always wanted to write a book. But I don't know how to go about. Do you have to have a perfect product if you're working the system, or will working through a system consistently enough make you better at whatever it is you'll do?
Well, you can consistently stay bad, but that's unlikely,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of like when they talked about the 10,000 hour rule. They says, well, you want to have purposeful practice. In other words, you have when you're practicing, whether it's swimming or whatever it is, you're not just getting out there flailing, and you do that 10,000 hours. You say, well, is is what I'm doing getting better? So
Mm-hmm.
if let's say, for example, you are writing something and you get on and you start writing and you go, this is messed up. It would well typically what happen is you'll say, well, what book will show me how to do this better?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go get a book. This is what I did. I read like 70 some odd books on writing. And this is when I was like from zero to putting out, books. And what it did for me is multiple things. It showed me that, well, sentence wise, the syntax was bad, or structure wise, that was bad, or you forgot that comma, you didn't put a e on the end of the, something like that. That's stuff that you'll find in edits. But when you say, how can I create a scene that has conflict, suspense, and speed? Now you're reading some James Patterson stuff because his books get you going, right? And you say, well, how can I create a character that does this? Then you're maybe reading a book on from McKee's story and how to structure a story. So, but if you never started doing one thing, you don't have anything to look and say, well, that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're a musician. You start doing something that sounds terrible. Then somebody comes along and says, no, hit this note this way. Here's B flat. Here's what it should sound like. And you go, my stuff didn't sound like that. So now you're purposefully getting better. And
Mm-hmm.
then next thing you know, it's from the consistency of doing the thing that you go, wow, day one, terrible. Day 101, maybe still bad. Day 201, better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea behind getting and being more consistent. I remember when I said I wanted to become a speaker. I wanted to learn how to speak, right? Because I could get up in front of people. I couldn't, put it together. I'm nervous and all that kind of stuff. Now, because I've done so many, things relative to speaking, not nervous anymore. Learn how to get up in front of folks and just look on the crowd and says, hey, here's some couple of things I want to talk about. Right? Come on this journey with me. Right? And then now it's easier. Not to say that you get perfect, because I can remember a time when I did that, and then I would get in front of a camera from the news station, right? And get nervous all over again
Mm-hmm.
until I says, you know what? I need to do more of those so that I can get very comfortable. Now I can have a camera in my face and I'm more comfortable. You can have the person over there asking you questions, and they ask questions in a weird way that make you nervous. They'll look at you and stop talking. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
should I fill in this space with? That's when stuff rolls out, right? But you learn this stuff as you go. And when I'm working with writers, John, I tell you,
Mm-hmm.
the very thing that I tell them is this: listen, just write,
Yep. Yep.
just write. And it's something that I read in Stephen King's book on writing. Just write, just get it out. We can fix it later. But if we don't, and this is what stops folks. Now, that's one lane of business, right? You're starting an internet business. Just get out there and figure stuff out. You're starting a sales business. Just get out there and make phone calls, right?
I
Get the refusals, the rejections. Just
J-
continue.
and John Maxwell, the famed leadership author,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
has spoken about this numerous times, and he even remarks that the first books that he did were terrible, in comparison to what he does now.
Right.
but it's becoming consistent in a process, and where you're devoting the time and energy. You're not just haphazardly just throwing something together, but you're actually doing something with all of yourself. And I think that's very important in whatever it is that you're doing,
That's a
to
key
just not.
point. Doing
Yeah.
something, you said the key right there, John. And I hate to interrupt, but doing something with all of
Mhm.
yourself. Now, you restaurateurs, chefs, people's businesses that are hard hit by what's happening, doing something not with just that lane, but all of you.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, and just that consistency, and the challenging to you. You're challenging yourself personally, and over time you're going to become better. If I can't run a mile today, but I run around the block um, today or tomorrow, and I see, I start by running around the block, and then I slowly build myself. Pretty soon I'll be able to run that mile. and
Sure.
it's and
Yeah.
it's like that. It's like that with anything. If we are consistent and we are putting ourselves into it, we're pouring ourselves into this, we're going to become better. And we've talked about mentors and surrounding yourself with the right people and whatnot. And when you're in this and you're doing this consistent work, you're also sharing it with individuals that are going to help you make yourself better.
Yeah.
So giving you tips and tricks to strengthen your skill set. um, but you have to be consistent. You can't think because you heard it once, or you learn it, or you read it in a book, that you're going to jump up and be a master at whatever the skill is. No, it's time, energy, consistency. Do you think how many we've talked about Kobe Bryant, when he played basketball?
Mm-hmm.
He would get up at 6 in the morning and shoot hoops, shoot free throws. Um, and the consistency over and over and over again. And most of his competitors are probably sleeping still.
That's right.
And that's those are the types of things that make people great.
Right. And it's
You,
that
you
motivation.
yeah, you just don't know that people are doing that, putting that type of energy. um, and that's what we fail to see. We fail to see the process behind it. We see something phenomenal, whether that's an athlete or whether that's someone with a tremendous skill, and we think, man, Frank Lloyd Wright, he just must have been natural. He must have been born with the ability to be able to draw some of these architectural feats that are still around 100 plus years after he's gone, and still admired by many. But I guarantee you that he spent a lot of time with a pencil or whatever in his hand, and he's drawing out and he's testing materials and he's doing different things, and not everything was perfect. It was a process that he put himself into, just like the great uh, works of art that we see in the most famous museums across the world. You think those artists just threw that together, and the only thing they did was take a preschool class? No, this is something they do every single. It's just, if you're Bocelli, you're singing every day. You're testing your ranges. You're seeing what you could do.
That's right.
You have a vocal coach. It's the consistency behind it. It just doesn't happen with anything.
And so as we think about this now, guys, we appreciate you letting us go off on our little rants. But we want you to be able to pull some of the jewels out of what we're saying. Opportunities that are you consistently looking for those within your lane of business and beyond? Because this is something that isn't often talked about, but there's something out there, there's somebody out there doing something that your specific niche could benefit from. Doesn't even have to be the same business, right? I take a look at airlines, for example. And once I started understanding how they were making money, the hub and spoke idea, right? That they have a place that they go to. And if you think about a spoke of a tire, it's like, but then from that spot, they're able to go here, here, and here. And it was efficient for them, right? And you say to yourself, how can I create a business that is utilizing and using the hub and spoke method? Right? That's what becomes the opportunity if you're consistently looking for different ways to do the same thing you do in your business. It becomes an opportunity then when you find something that you go, wow, wait a minute, that is interesting how they do that. What can I use in my restaurant? Right. And now here's the thing, if you think about what restaurants had to start doing because of the pandemic of 2020, is they had to start thinking takeout oriented. Well, that's not the first, right? They had to think, how can I do what I do and still make a couple of dollars, still stay open, still stay relevant? And I do it in takeout fashion. They really went over and looked at how other people, how other companies were doing this takeout stuff. And they says, let's apply it to us. Have you noticed restaurants have been putting up these little teepees and tents and
Igloos.
igloos and all that? I saw one that it looked so bad, man. It was in a downtown restaurant. I'm not gonna say who it was because I may end up working with these people, but they were shanties, and I was like, for that company to put up a shanty, I was almost ashamed. I was almost embarrassed for them. Right? It was literally some I don't know. It was a little bit beyond corrugated board, but it was like, are you kidding me right now? But it will allow them to now continue to do business. It just wasn't pro at all. And then I'm watching some of the smaller little spots. They put up nice little igloos. They put up these. I saw one just the other day. Theirs was a closed igloo. I didn't like that one as much because it was, it was a kind of a material. It's all dark and all that kind of stuff. You couldn't see if anybody was in there, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't dig that at all because I want to see what's going on around me. Right. But then what they've done is adjusted to the restrictions on having people in the restaurant. So they says, could we put the restaurant outside? Right. That's opportunity thinking. Now, if we look at that and we strip it of its principles, we say, could I do something? Listen, do something outside of. Now, you may say, well, my business doesn't have an inside or an outside. We look at the metaphor here. We look at the principle. They are restricted from having people on the inside of their business. So they created something on the outside, right? So let's just take that idea and now bring your business outside of, right? Let's bring in the metaphor outside of what you do currently. That's the key here. Teaching, okay, laid off outside of teaching. There's people out there that say, hey, well, listen, there's some people that need to learn English and maybe they'll hire me. Yep, you're still teaching. I got a friend who is a curriculum maestro. So I'm encouraging her. In fact, I'm going to encourage her so strongly that I'm going to buy her first curriculum. It says, tell me what you charge for that. You see what I mean? Now, because I'm continually curious and I'm consistently curious about if there's something that she could provide that is of benefit to what I do, because I build courses all the time. And her big pitch is, I want to build something because I'm watching a lot of people that are very, very smart in their area basically build bad stuff. So she is a curriculum maestro. She says, I told her, I said, that is perfect. Start today. I said, so this is my homework to her. When I hear a good idea and I say, hey, listen, immediately after we get off the phone, just jot down how that might look, just a little something toward that idea, right? Now, then that is, let's say for teachers, they come up with this, they see this, and they say, well, I typically teach a whole bunch of kids that aren't listening. So if I can create, maybe I use, Randy's friend's structure and I put what I do, you're the subject matter expert, into that structure, and voila. Right? Now we take that a little bit further and we say, okay, let's go more outside of even that. Well, how can I digitize that? Then how can I be a service to that? How can you maybe you don't do anything in the curriculum building space, but you are a master at showing people how to deliver it. You're a master at showing people how to record it. You see my point here. You may have another latent talent that you had put down because you had to go out and earn a living in a different way that now could be activated to help somebody in a particular area. So you just find those folks. Hey, I think you need help with your lensing. So I'm going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to record that and I'm going to create content around that. Then I'm going to put that on YouTube. All you were trying to do is say, hey, listen, everybody out there that wants to create courses, here's some things to think about. Here's some lighting things that you could do. And now you can be earning money because if you become an affiliate for the lighting companies, the camera companies, the curtain companies, whatever it is, now you have a chance because you do a thing and it's outside of, going back to that metaphor, outside of the main thing that you did. Restaurateurs, if anybody has had a successful restaurant or even an unsuccessful restaurant, tell us the math of that. Right? Show me that, because I'm so curious why people keep creating restaurants, right? Tell me what is attractive about that. Tell me visually. I want to be able to see you on YouTube, or maybe I'll become a part of your VIP group of how to get the restaurant business even better after pandemic. You see, you're creating. You're suffering from what happened, present business, but future business says that you're now going and saying, you know what? I think we can do something. Show me how you guys buy at a level that allows you to go out and sell. Show me how you break down that stake, and every bit of that stake is going toward paying a particular part of your cost. I'd like to see that math. I'd like to see that in an infographic. I'd like to see that somewhere that I can go, yeah, I should never go into that business, or be inspired to go, if I can learn how to do this well, then I can start off better than a lot of other people do. That kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Give me your hindsight. If hindsight were 2020, I would have done this. Well, show me that. And maybe I'd pay you to be a part of your mastermind group, to be a part of your VIP group, to be whatever. That's thinking outside of the business that you had. That's like what they were doing. Restaurants, right? I'm going to put couple little huts, a little igloos outside of, right? You seen the new ones, the TP looking ones, not TP, but they're just square. First you had the igloos I saw here in Grand Rapids. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I even went in a couple of them and said, oh, this is pretty neat. And then I started seeing these new ones. They were just like little square boxes, like a little triangle, like a mini house. And they were able to, because of its structure, get more people, get more of those in. So now what's happening is you're seeing one person starts off that way. You don't have to model it or copy it. You can say, what else could I do? Mm-hmm. And then somebody says, well, people didn't like to be seen while they're eating, so we're going to just cover ours up. Then somebody says, well, we don't have to do that. We're going to just build a shanty. You're right. Like an ice fishing shanty. And I started going, this is not good. But because they got that, and I thought, oh, wow, wait a minute. Couldn't we create something like that for the homeless population? Right? I thought, just what I started thinking, I was like, we want people not to be in exposure, and they may not have a house yet, but let's give them this little shanty. And if it's a shanty that is now the covered ones, they have a degree of privacy, and you can put that in the park that they are. If we can't get them inside, okay, here's your shanty. I'm just thinking, and that is a little bit of protection from the elements. And then somebody that is out there that maybe what do you do when you're hiking in the snow? Oh shoot, I can't think of it.
Snowshoeing?
Not snowshoeing, but people that hike the mountains and stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, with the ice picks and all that kind of stuff. I can't think of the word, but anyway, so they got these tents that for some reason they just protect you from the elements. And I always thought, man, this is windy. How are they putting those in the ground? So maybe that's something that you can use for the shanties. Or, it's like, what are they sleeping on? Well, they got these super thermal blah blah blahs that they sleep in. So couldn't we use that idea now for the homeless population so that they're not exposed and dying out there because of the weather? So little things like that, right? That you say that's outside of what I do normally. That's outside of the way I typically think. But now you're saying, could we apply that kind of stuff to something totally new? And that becomes your opportunity for 2021 is to totally think differently outside of what you do, to use principles from everywhere to maybe make your book of business, to entrepreneur like never before in fields that you never thought that you could, right? You can add something to that conversation, being a kind of, let's say, as a part of a big mastermind group. You know what I mean? You bring in your field of expertise and people go, I never thought about that. Yeah, let's do it this way. Maybe you're the person that comes up with the new way to deliver vaccines, right? If you think about that, and I want to go on another little nice rant for you guys so you can hear this stuff. You think about how the vaccine that we are all being asked to take, how the approach that they took to get there, right? mRNA, right? They were talking about these scientists like they were, like they were just criminals or something. That won't work. And if they use mRNA to be the delivery vehicle of the good stuff. So what did I start doing? The other day I started thinking, I want to learn everything about mRNA, not because I want to create a vaccine, but because I'm thinking from a business standpoint, how does mRNA, how can I relate it to business? Right? And because you consistently been doing something, now you can put it all together because you says, oh, wait a minute. I now understand processes better because I got 300 of trying to do something's in me. You see what I mean? So now I'm thinking mRNA is a way to deliver something that gets past your body's natural defenses. Because your body sees something and your immune system goes, attack, foreign. Well, this approach allows you, and this is just a little bit of what I know. So I'm not a scientist. You guys can come on and say that guy's talking, he's full of canal water. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm thinking, can I learn enough about that to say, how can I use the principles of how they slip past natural defenses? Let's say gatekeepers, right? Let's say people that say no to your projects. Those are the natural defenses, like the immune system. What can I deliver? My idea, my service in a way that uses that principle. You see my point here? That principle to maybe get past them and get over to this. Right? And you start thinking about, oh, they were dogging them out, man, saying that the immune system will eat it up. And somebody says, well, we found a way. They combine with somebody that has a kind of a sleeve, an envelope of fat that goes around whatever it is. So then by the time it got to the spot, right? Maybe you ate away at the fat molecule, but that saved it because the body says, oh, that's just fat. That's just a fat molecule. They're good. Right? And then they found a way to, how do we light this thing up so that it goes right to this illness? Right? And all these kind of things that we can now translate. Have you heard of this word called biomimicry?
No.
All right. When you get a chance, look that up. Everybody's listening out there, biomimicry. And I thought, what is biomimicry? Well, that's using nature. Right? So bio, I would assume, so they're mimicking something that happens in biology, in other words, in nature. To now, and you take the principles of, how does a particular animal or something in nature do this? And then how can we mimic that? And I started thinking, that's brilliant stuff. Right? But that's where the opportunities, when we start thinking about 2021, that we want you thinking about. The two guys are masterminding on this today because we want you thinking in a whole different way. We don't want you, new shiny thing syndrome and all that kind of stuff. We want you thinking principles. take those principles, model them for what I do. Can I? Principles. This is how the business was ran, but that no longer serves us because of regulatory problems, right? We think about the healthcare. I just literally get this. I canceled my gym membership
Mhm.
because, and I started, I says, well, every time I turn around, I'm in the gym and they got to close. Now, this is because of pandemic 2021, right? Or 2020. I said, they close. And I'm thinking, this is messed up, man. And they're still charging you for a little bit of time and say, well, we're kind of open, but you got to be 12 feet from somebody. So now you're not really getting on that machine because it's not 12 feet. And I started thinking, wait a minute. I bought myself a rebounder. I do my jumping jacks on a rebounder. I do my wind sprints on a rebounder. That cost me a couple of bucks. And I says, you know what? How can I take this home? And I start saying, well, every time I'm working in my home office, every hour on the hour, my little buzzer, this little buzzer right here goes off. I get up, I go do my wind sprints. And I feel that I'm getting in better shape than I did when I had to travel to the gym. Get that, right? Travel to the gym. That's 30 minutes. Get my stuff right, work out, looking over here at people like that wiping down the machines, sneezing and stuff. And I'm thinking, well, this ain't gonna work. And able to
And
say,
they've even come out with new technologies during this time of the pandemic. I mean, we all see
I
the
could be
mirror
right at
now.
home. I could be
Yeah,
right at home. You
it,
says the
it,
VR gear?
the mirror, the
Yeah,
you stand in
yeah,
front of that
yeah,
mirror and
yes.
you have
How
that
can you
personal
think
trainer.
outside of? This one.
Yeah.
Think outside of what you were doing. Are you doing the same kind of thing? Yep. And I advise a couple of people that are in the physical fitness space. And I told one guy just recently, I says, guy, every time you go get gas, show us how you can do maybe some deep knee bends while your car is filling up. I never thought about that. That's right. You're still, and I says, now put it on camera, get your camera out, whatever it is, get the little, and just do your knee bends and show me how, well, when you do knee bends, what that does is release nitric oxide in your body that's trapped in your joints. Oh, I didn't know that. And what nitric oxide does is naturally relax your blood vessels. So that could be good for people with high blood pressure. Good for people. You see my point here? Nitric oxide is released, and you were just getting gas. Well, some guy showed me how to do this. You're at home. And I says, if you were buying a whole bunch of water, but guess what? Those little water jugs weigh a couple of pounds. Show me how to do some. Instead of having a kettlebell, I got those water jugs, and I'm just, doing some stuff for my shoulders. I'm doing some stuff for my chest using flies. Using the not flies, but you, all that becomes something that you can now do because you're thinking outside of what you did and taking advantage of what's happening before us. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't mean to go off on that much of a rant, but this is what we want to be of service to you about. If you're just jumping in at the end of the hour, John and I are masterminding on the 2020, and we call that present business. And then the 2021, we're calling that future business, and how we now have to take from other industries the principles and now adapt them and adopt them and then refigure them in a way that we can still be relevant, make money, and you may end up becoming a whole different person
Mm.
as a result of what is happening when you thought this is terrible, but it forced you to do something different. I can't tell you how many 70-year-olds, and I'm nowhere near that age, that I'm seeing on Zoom dropping bombs of good information, right? Whereas before their professorship is done or they taught and they're done. They're just on there now because they had to communicate with people, or somebody's calling up because they're a subject matter expert. And you hear this stuff and you go, oh my goodness, they just uncorked just all this valuable stuff from their life and experiences, et cetera, et cetera. And they're sitting there, they don't even know how to work it. How do you do this? What do I press? You know what I mean? But get
Mhm.
this, because they're on there now, you have access to them. You got access to them, man. Right? That is so brilliant. Bringing it now, people are, instead of having a conference of a couple hundred people. Now you got a conference of 1,000 people and on screen. See what Tony Robbins is doing. He's doing some amazing things because people couldn't meet the way he did, but he figured it out, right? And now he's out there, still doing some of the same things that people are in the safety of their home, and they're still getting inspired. They're still getting motivated. He's figured it out. He spent millions of dollars to figure this out, and boom, new industry, new cottage industry. He can reach people all over the world that couldn't come to some of his, um, Awaken the Giant Within seminars or whatever it is. You know, this is what I'm talking about. We now need to look at those, strip those principles dry, and in a way that they can help us. And you could have a fantastic, exciting, much more interesting 2021 than you did probably prior to that. This is
Are
what we wish for you.
those Waking the Dragon seminars, are they
Waking the
the
Giant.
ones? Yeah, giant. Are those the ones that you're running across those hot coals?
Well, I think he's kind of he's transitioned from doing that.
Okay.
That's what he used to do. That was some of the things that when he was getting started that he did, because it was a mindset thing that you won't get burned. And now he's into, other things, but he makes millions and millions and millions of dollars from these big events, but he would have 20, 30, 10, 20, 30,000 people at him. So I was just reading recently how he got with the owners of Zoom, he got with some other technology place and says, how can I still recreate this process, but do it in a way that people can stay in their homes, et cetera, right? And he figured out how to configure a big old warehouse that he bought, right? And with all these cameras, he's still doing his thing. He's still jumping around, still getting people excited. He's got all these little screens. It was incredible to see that. And now people that are trying to talk to him about it, you got the NFL that's saying, hey, how can we find out what Tony Robbins is doing here? And as a result of that becomes a consulting opportunity for him. Right now, he spent millions of dollars. I read an article about it. I think it was like $30 million to buy a warehouse, buy a little space, and reconfigure it, right? So that he can do this thing and have his big events in a different way. Now think about that for the events business.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in the events business and you brought physical bodies in, think outside of that. Think about the restaurants that are now, serving people on the outside. It's not totally different than what you already did, but you now have to do it for somebody in the tech space. People still need to get signed up. People still need to get sold. People still need to, all these things. But you now have the opportunity for 2021 to say, how can I adjust what I do? How can I become different, better, more excited from this opportunity that has been presented to us? Forced or non-forced, we have an opportunity, right? This is something funny. I get in my emails, I get some stuff from like Motley Fool, and I get all these these different newsletters and stuff, right? And I apply readily to them because they drop information, and now when you are able to just take pieces of information and create from it because you have so many other things floating. I got one the other day, and it talked about, I think it was from Monday Money or something, Money Mondays. Anyway, and they were talking about an advisory newsletter that, now this is the sell. The advisory newsletter is what they're actually trying to sell, John. But they had articles in there that from those small little articles, was their newsletter, right? And apparently I've been signed up since 2013 because it says you've been signed up to this newsletter from 2013. I'm thinking, I don't recall that. I better look at my credit card statement to see I'm not getting charged for that, right? But
Going
the thing
to your
is,
spam.
yeah, but the thing is that it was some really gold information.
Mm-hmm.
And they predicted like 3 to 4 different stocks that would go up. Now imagine if you were on that newsletter, right? And I know John and I, we're talking about coming out with our own newsletter, Two Business Guys Mastermind newsletter. And you see the business model there. right? As we're already going out doing these things, then we create our newsletter. Now we can take pieces of what we talk about that creates a part of the newsletter, right? And then we have, the business model, the revenue models behind how to make money from that, right? That becomes, you say, oh, wait a minute. I just thought you guys were on there talking. No, we're on here talking to inspire you, to inform you, to encourage you, think about your business differently. But here is the business side of it. And we see that we have some consistency, right? You see that we have some consistency, 46 episodes in. You say, these guys are real, for real. They're sticking around. Yep. And now here are opportunities for us to now enrich and enhance what you do even more. So here's what we pulled in. Here's this newsletter, right? And then we understand how to, revenue that thing out. Because get this, we listen and look at newsletters and we figure out, well, I buy from those because some of the information is valuable, right? I was able to take a little bit of what they said, John, and I looked up a couple of things. I was like, oh my God, that opens up a whole nother area, right? And it was a stock. I didn't pick the stock, but I thought about why the stock went up. And I started thinking, how did they find this? How did they get into the trend? So that started me thinking, what can I use for my own business? What I'm noticing here. So I was able to get in to understand how they have a venture with an AI program that goes out and scrapes the internet to find things that people are talking about. And then they go, And I says, well, couldn't I do that for business? Absolutely. Is that available? Yep. And now that you got time on your hands, you have time to take a look at this stuff. That's what's possible when you're looking at 2021 for opportunities, looking to go outside of what you naturally do. I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean to take up all that time, but this is some of the things I'm thinking about. From biomimicry to metaphoring everything you do. Listen to what we're saying, everybody, and see that that's what you now can be doing, right? We'll help you figure this stuff out. John and I have, our consulting service that we run through the Two Business Guys Mastermind, whether it's the books and stuff. Call us up. We'll walk you all the way down from that. You get the benefit of, two people for the price of one, two business minds masterminding on your business problem. That's our call to action for you. If you need our help, just get with us. So John, 2021, we've been talking a little bit here, and let's close it up, man. What do you see immediately that people could jump on and, jumpstart their 2021?
Establish a routine. So whether that's listing out everything that you do every day and being consistent in that, finding accountability partners and mentors.
Accountability partners. See, establish routine, accountable. So you got your routine, but you got to have somebody that says, yeah, let's stick to it. Accountability partner.
Yeah. Mentors to help you. Mentors aren't just going to be honest with you, but they're also going to be individuals that have navigated this space before. So whatever it is, you want to pick someone whose expertise is in whatever it is that you're aiming for. And so they could give you tips and tricks that they've done as well, and glean as much of that information as you can and keep the consistency going.
And be consistent. And also routine, let's also say process, right? It doesn't matter what it is that you're trying to do. Why I set the clock for every hour on the hour is because they talk about sitting too long and how it has a negative effect on your body. So I says, well, can I get a workout routine in there? Absolutely. You don't have to do a lot, because think about it. When we go to the gym, we leave it all. We try to put in as much as we can in that hour. But if you're doing something on a consistent basis, every hour on the hour, let's say, somebody said to me, hey, who does that? I says, well, I want to get up from my seat. Right? I want my body to know that it's getting ready to do a little workout. So guess what? Because you do it that way, there is evidence to show that your body doesn't get hungry. So now I'm not snacking while I'm sitting at my desk, because my body says, hey, we're good. Because that workout maybe released a little sugar, or it because it had to, right? The body says, hey, I need sugar. So your liver says, I got some. In fact, I got a lot. Or the middle of your stomach, because it's, it's a little extended, says, I got a ton. So I'll just give you some of mine. And next thing you know, you're not hungry, you're working out, you're getting your workout on, you're getting your work done, you come back more refreshed. While you're working out, I guarantee you'll get an idea or two. Right? It breaks up the opportunity. It breaks up, right? That focused thinking, but at the same time, you're staying with it because now you're introducing oxygen, a little bit of workout, a little bit of, you know what I mean? You come back and you're like, I feel a little bit better. You're breathing a little bit better. Now your brain is going, that's right. That problem we were just working on, I just figured it out while you were doing your wind sprints, or were you doing your push-ups, or Billy Blankson, or, whatever you do.
Tybo.
I bought some of his stuff. So you see what's happening here? And now he's making a comeback on commercials. I saw him on a Geico, Liberty or Geico, one of those commercials, doing his thing. He's about 155 years old, but he's out there doing his thing, man. Right? And then people say, who is this guy? Oh, that's Billy Blanks. Shoot, man, you get into shape if you do his stuff. But my point is that you see what's happening is that you've baked it in. And this is what I'm going to tell you guys. Like John says, establishing a routine is you baking in your other good stuff with stuff you're already doing. Baking it in. Your accountability partner. Am I on track? Am I doing this right? Nope, you're practicing wrong. Okay, where you notice that I'm doing it badly? Boom. Your mentors, whether it's John and I, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, if you say, hey, Two Business Guys Mastermind, mentor me. Two Business Guys, could you help me? Absolutely. You picking someone that will take the time with you to say, do it like this, right? And if you believe that I like to say, remember how we would have these karate masters? I don't know if you guys ever watched karate movies, but they were always looking for somebody to mentor, right? You have some hot shot come in there and he says, I know a thing, it's not quite right. And then the master says, they call him sensei. He says, I'll teach you. And then you get better. And then eventually you get better than them and you got to fight them at the end, but whatever, but in this case, we say we just collaborate. Mentor, thank you. I've been, finding myself doing a lot of mentorship with people, right? And that's an ode to where you used to get talked about for doing too many things, or you're a jack of all trades. Now people are looking for jack of all trades because they're saying you pull in from so many different industries that can inform mine better. Because you're saying, oh, we can use a business principle from here. So ode to the jack of all trades, right? Now it's our time. The generalists, they say. The generalists are surviving because the ones that have a focused, unwilling to see other thing mindset, something comes in and replaces them, they don't know how to do anything else. They become blockbuster. You see my point? Even doctors, surgeons are being, outpaced by Da Vinci, right? So you say, would I want my knee done by Da Vinci or by this guy that might be tired or maybe had a couple of drinks, or that lady that, is thinking about, something that she shouldn't be thinking about while she's working on my heart? I mean, that becomes the idea. The generalist, however, says, I can do many things and focus on them at a specific time to help you in this particular area. I don't want the generalist messing with my heart or brain. Don't get me wrong, but that's just what we're talking about in business. So anyway, John, I tell you, man, I appreciate you coming on today, or us getting together and you allowing me to talk. John's typically, talking to himself, but today he just let me go on. We hope that what we've been able to say to you guys sparks your imagination and makes you go, wow, this is what 2020 has awaiting me? Absolutely. Take things outside of what you used to do. Start thinking about how you can pull them into what you now can do, capability-wise, and then create like crazy. That's our wish for you. John, is there anything you want to leave people with before we take off and go about our day? Is there one thing we can leave people with? You said
just,
what?
just making sure that you're consistent in having a process and implementing that process and being accountable. It's the number one thing. Number one thing. Happy New Year. And remember, let's start this today, not tomorrow,
That's right.
not next week, but today.
Yeah. And my word is literally think outside of yourself.
Mm.
Your business, think outside of yourself. Think about principles outside of what you do, bring them into what you do, and expand your opportunities. That's what we wish for you for 2021. Thank you for coming in, guys. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time.